First off, I just want to discuss the absolute set of balls on Matt Mitrione for daring to say on the air, me versus Sergey Kharitonov is a super fight. That is, I believe Kelvin Gastelum won the middleweight title more than I believe that Matt Mitrione versus Sergey Kharitonov is a super fight. I could not believe that he said it. I could not believe that Bellator said, yeah, that's the right move. Well, we'll keep that in the video. And can't believe that Paramount aired it. But he's facing Kharitonov. I think Haritonov's going to win this one. But this isn't a bad show on Friday either. You have Logan Storley in action. You have Dudu Dantes in action. Some okay fights, though. Pedro Carvalho and Brandon Gertz are on there, too. Nothing on the prelims. You have Amanda Bell, who beat a couple of the horsewomen back in the day, but Austin Vanderford, Paige Van Zant's husband, I almost said wife.
Oh, wow.
Was on the show. It was not intentional, but James, what do you think of this show? A decent one, nowhere near as big as their Saturday night show.
Yeah, again, we've talked about this before. I don't necessarily like the back-to-back shows, especially when you have a UFC card as well, because it's going to be tough to catch up. I'm sure I'm going to PVR some of this and catch up on it a bit later. But yeah, some of these fights are really interesting. This Toby Masek guy, what a year he's had. He got lost in Contender Series, if you remember. Went to Bellator to Hawaii, got a huge win, and now he steps in on short notice against Dantes, who desperately needs a win here. I think if Dantes loses here, this might be the last time we see him in Bellator. I know it's bantamweight and they need more guys, but he doesn't really fit the Paramount / Spike mold, so to speak. So great opportunity here for Toby. Austin Vanderford, great guy. I've interviewed him a handful of times. I think the UFC made a mistake not signing him at a Contender Series. This is actually fighting at a catchweight, which is interesting because of the short notice. This Mike Kimball guy, everyone's big on. He was on the Ariel's show. Got that highlight reel win in his last fight. He's taking on John Duma. Duma's another guy I wouldn't count out. Logan Storley finally getting he had a co-main event in his last fight, but he's a guy, I don't know why they're not pushing more. He should really be in that welterweight tournament, 9-0. And I'm with you guys. This is absolutely not a super fight with Mitrione, but I think they're banking on the fact that, the average Paramount viewer isn't an average MMA fan, and they're just like, oh, super fight. Yeah, I'll tune in. That makes sense. It reminds me of when, Mark Pavlich used to run MFC and said that he has the best promotion in the world. The people in the UFC, they're wasting their time watching that, watch MFC. So it's promoters are going to promote, right?
Kharitonov is a -145 over Mitrione, a +105. I got to speak to Scott Coker. Next time I talk to him, I'm going to say, hey, why do you all run these back-to-backs in the same city? Is it to give maybe multiple distributors more content? Because I know that the Saturday show is on DAZN. This one's on DAZN and Paramount. Joe, you got Matt Mitrione against Kharitonov. I want your pick and anything else you might be looking forward to on this show.
Well, clearly it's a super fight. I mean, the ratings are going to be fantastic. Paramount obviously knows exactly what they're doing, and this is huge. I mean, you talk about Logan Storley trying to get in that welterweight tournament. The absolute eyeballs he's going to get from this super fight in the main event is going to be fantastic. People are going to know exactly who he is. Well, I'm going with, it's tough to say. I mean, Mitrione can surprise a lot of people, but I'll go with Kharitonov because based on his last performance, he's looking pretty damn good. My real question for this fight, for this event here is, man, Tuesday we could be talking about Eduardo Dantas on a 3-fight losing streak. I don't think he's going to lose, but he could be on a 3-fight losing streak. This is a former champ, man.
Our entire show next week might be a review show because we got these 3 cards, and Bellator 216 is the next night, and it is a damn good show. You have Eric Silva against Amasov, who's 20-0. He made that impressive debut against Gerald Harris, has looked great. Mirko Krokop against Roy Nelson. That could be fun or really terrible. Vitaly Minikov and Czech Congo. Now, some of the lines on these are wild. Roy Nelson +160. Krokop at -210. I think that's where it should be. But Czech Congo, a +340 against Minikov, a -510. Now, Czech Congo has been on a hot streak, James, and Minikov is still on a hot streak as well. But, man, that line for a heavyweight fight, that's kind of wild to me.
Yeah, I'd put 5 in it just in case. But Minikov has been pretty dominant, hasn't lost a fight. I mean, I forget which fight it was. There was one that it was a little bit more competitive than it needed to be. But, in all likelihood, Minikov's going to win this and fight Ryan Bader. But yeah, great fight. I mean, I don't know why they did the rematch. The first fight wasn't great. You could have just done Minikov against Bader right out the gate, but I guess they want to take advantage, or at least, get him familiar with the Bellator audience, since his return. So, but yeah, I'm with you. Anytime there's a heavyweight fight, if anyone's even over plus 200, there's always value in a fight.
Bellator doesn't really seem to have any rhyme or reason why they do rematches sometimes. They're like, who cares that the first one sucked? Yeah. Kind of odd. I mean, they do it all the time. Joe, we got Krokop and Nelson. We have Amasov against Silva, Kongo and Minikov. Who are you picking in those fights?
Amasov. I just don't trust Eric Silva anymore, obviously. Krokop and Roy Nelson. That's actually, believe it or not, that's a strategic fight. Like there's gonna be strategy involved there from Krokop. I can't see Krokop making that mistake of getting tagged by Nelson, and I don't think Nelson ever wants to go back to that black belt that he has from Renzo Gracie and take the fight down to the ground, which would he be dominating people. This guy could have gone down as a submission master in this game, right? He just chose not to. He told me flat out. Him and his wife told me flat out many times that striking is where it's at. So that's what I'm going to do, and then. Don't laugh, guys. I know Minikov should be destroying Kongo. I got this feeling Kongo's going to surprise a lot of people.
Czech Kongo has been surprising me nonstop for the last year or two. He's been, especially of late, he's been great. So I can't write him off. He will be one of my I got 5 on it picks.
That's my I got 5 on it right there, man.
Yeah. The main event, and it's what everybody's coming to see, and it could be fight of the weekend, or it could be the most terrible fight of the weekend. These types can be like that. Paul Daley, MVP. This is the fight. This is one of the best fights that Bellator could possibly make from a star perspective. We have Michael Page at minus 245, Daley at plus 175. For a long time, James, everybody said that Michael Page was just hype. I don't think you can call him that anymore, but this is the fight for him.
It is. This reminds me a little bit of Wanderlei Silva and Chuck Liddell, like about 3 years too late. But nonetheless, glad we're finally are seeing it. Daley's had some big wins in between. Then the win over Larkin was great. I know he lost to John Fitch, but anyone who fights a wrestler, if you're a wrestler and you're fighting Paul Daley, chances are in your favor. And Page isn't really that at all. So if the stays standing, it's an interesting fight. I think there is value on Daley here at plus 175 because he's got that power. If he gets in on the inside, he can knock you out. Just ask Lorenz Larkin. But Page, I think, is more technical. It's really is a coin flip, but I do think there is a path to victory there for Daley. If I had to make a pick, though, I think I'll go Page just because I think his striking is a little bit better, and I think Daley's just he's taken he's had a lot of fights. There's a lot of wear and tear there, so I think Page is a little bit fresher. I just hope we don't see a repeat of Michael Page and Fernando Gonzalez because that was a really bad fight, and we thought it was going to be bonkers, and it wasn't at all.
Yeah, and when you look at Michael Page, like I remember when I first saw the tornado kick, and I'm sure you all know which one I'm talking about, when he was in UC MMA. He was 24 years old then, and back then you even had a lot of people say, bring him up slow, bring him up slow. They've done that. I think he's 31 now. He'll be 32 soon, I think. 32 in April. So, I mean, they have taken their time with him. Now, to be fair, he's fought some guys that have been around, like Rudy Bears, Ricky Rainey, Nashawn Burrell. Not amazing fighters, but they've been around. Cyborg Santos was a crafty veteran who had his career ended by this man. Fernando Gonzalez, while that fight sucked, he's a pretty decent fighter. Dave Rickles, pretty good fighter. This is the biggest test of Michael Page's career. And since that tornado kick, I mean, we're talking 15 fights between kickboxing and MMA, Joe. It is time. They can't put this off any longer. And he is here in the tournament. How do you think it goes?
I think he emerges victorious, and I think James, the one word James used there was pretty succinct. I think it will be bonkers, James. I know there's so many fights that we've seen in the past where we think it's going to be quote unquote bonkers. I think this one's going to be crazy. There may be a situation where, that they may respect each other right off the top, but eventually as soon as someone figures out that distance, it's going to get ugly. And I think the place is going to explode. If these casual, I know it's in a casino, and I know that sometimes, casino crowds aren't exactly MMA fans per se, but once they realize, if they do understand the significance of this fight here, I think that place, that roof could just be exploding, man. I think it's going to be a fantastic fight. I really do. And I think Page will emerge victorious via TKO.